Whatto chaps, I'm MagicalMike and recently I've been replaying The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. Last time I spent any kind of time with this was back in, I don't know, 2012, because I have a video series showing off all my old characters and the stuff I played with them, back when Skyrim was still new and I didn't think I'd be going back here. Well, how wrong I was, and it's funny to think that I'd never replay Oblivion, that somehow it'd become irrelevant or whatever. I have no idea why I thought as much, because I definitely wouldn't do nowadays, especially considering that I'm still excited to play Morrowind eventually, but that's a whole other story. Stories that I've talked about with all sorts of games in a playlist to boot, so go check that out on the channel, leave a like on this video and all that, cheers. So it's been a very long time since I've played this, so long that the modding scene has changed dramatically. See, when I last played I was still using Oblivion Mod Manager, Boss, OBGE and who knows what other old tools to play the game with. Looking into bringing the game up to more modern standards was a strange experience. Oblivion modding doesn't seem to have grown up or evolved the same way that Skyrim modding has. There's not a lot of standardization. Old Nexus pages show their age. Readmes are often broken or ironically unreadable. It's not always listed correctly which mods are required for things to work. There's a lot of relics like this all over old Oblivion mods, sadly. There's very few new mods out there. There's not a lot of agreement on specific ones to use in all installs. There's a lot of in-depth write-ups and guides that have so much detail in them that it's overwhelming to follow. Lots of where the heck do I start? How the heck do I know which mods are considered must-haves and why are so many mods considered out-of-date questions all over the net. A lot of confusion. So it's handy that I found a good place to start when I stumbled on Reign of the Septims, a comprehensive Oblivion modding guide that was uploaded to Nexus in March 2025. I wonder why I just said 20 and then 20. 2025, 2025, 2020, I don't know. Who knows? Using tools I actually now know fairly well, like Mod Organizer 2, was a huge step forward. I really value this mod manager for its virtual file system and not installing files over each other, which makes mistakes easy to avoid and fix if you commit. So cool, step 1 is in. The guide itself is kind of massive. I currently have 303 mods enabled and I opted to skip quite a lot of the optional things. I could see that being off-putting, but what I have now is a very stable Vanilla Plus experience of the game that has tons of super useful additions like better UI, loads more hotkeys, higher resolution textures and who knows what else. I've literally only crashed one single time, and that is because I dared to name a spell with a % symbol in it, so that was probably totally my fault. I did decide to skip out on some texture packs. There's one that was a 12GB download that I didn't really feel like installing, for example. I haven't done any LODs, so I don't see much distant detail in the world, and I've not added or changed any vanilla sounds because I value that stuff for preserving the nostalgic vibe, and I've skipped quite a lot of added towns and content like that. Also, I'm not using any AI voiced stuff because I oppose the idea in general. Anyway, the game is set up and very playable. The thing that sparked this whole revisit is, of course, the remaster of the original coming out. I've been aware that that was coming for a couple of months maybe, but it dropped almost out of nowhere, and with a huge 50 quid price tag on it, which I was not particularly happy about. It's also full of all the old bugs and problems that the OG has, and even some new ones, and without a good way to mod things yet, so somewhat ironically the old game is better in some respects at the time that I'm recording this. They changed the levelling to be much more sensible in the remaster, which looks cool on paper, but in practice still has issues. Funnily enough though, I'm using a mod called Ultimate Levelling, which works a lot like the remaster, skipping out the awkward efficient levelling methods and just giving you attributes to distribute however you like each level. Along with other overhauls like Ascension, making loot, enemy variety and level scaling work to keep tons more variety and meaning in the exploration, this setup works wonders in keeping the levelling experience from feeling constrained or awkward. I can just do whatever I want my skills to do and keep my character feeling like it has an actual build and reason to explore stuff. Roleplay in my role-playing game. Imagine that. That said, I did make sure that I had Midas Magic installed. Despite its inherent bugginess, nostalgia won out on that fight, and I made myself a wood elf with a custom druid class, despite Boris thinking that I was an experienced monk.
But from what I've seen of you, I'm guessing you're an experienced monk. Am I right?
Bosmer aren't really good at being mages. You don't get any bonuses to willpower or intelligence, so I was going to fight an uphill battle to begin with. I picked my 7 major skills: Alchemy, Alteration, Conjuration, Destruction, Illusion, Light Armor, and Restoration. Comboed them with the Apprentice Birth Sign for 100 extra magicka, and off I went from the sewers. The tutorial was ripe with nostalgia, by the way. My first goals were simple: go explore some dungeons like Vilverin, sell my tutorial inventory, join the arena, get some starter spells, and buy the waterfront property to store things at. So off I went to the city to immerse myself deeply into the atmosphere. Man, I miss this game. While it feels old and certainly looks it in a lot of places, I just don't see that as a negative like I did back in 2012. So I sold my stuff, grabbed a couple of helpful spells from Edgar's discount shop, and headed out to explore the nearby Imperial Isle dungeons. Vilverin, the classic first dungeon experience most players have in Oblivion, was first up. I wandered my way through there and got heavily beaten up by the many bandits within, spamming my new light spell and detect life as I went, conjuring an imp familiar to do most of the heavy lifting, and trying not to die with my tiny health pool, weak shield ability, and basic self-healing. The first guy inside dropped me a baton, basically a quarterstaff, a fast-swinging two-handed blunt weapon with long reach and low-ish damage, but perfectly on theme for my idea of what a druid should be. So I had a blast going through here, levelled up using my skills as they came naturally, and carried on. I'd also made sure to pick up the Midas Chest spell, which is a summonable storage that I didn't intend to abuse, but ended up doing so anyway. Afterwards I checked out Sideways Cave, the closest one to the prison exit, and realised I've likely never even been in there before. I found a ton of helpful loot, which I don't remember anymore, but it was important at the time. Also full of fairly unique mixing between cave scenery and Ayleid ruins, which was quite cool to see. And I took a visit to Sinkhole Cave, I don't know how to say that, and Fatback Cave to round off all the Isle's dungeons. I also made sure to visit Way and do the Slaughterfish quest for a water-breathing ring, dived the waters near Fanaskiskiskul for the Ring of Destruction, and hit up the arena for a few fights, which promptly beat me to a pulp numerous times because I was stubbornly not wanting to rely too heavily on conjuration so much. Fun, so much nostalgia. Then I took a nap on the bloated float, finishing off the kidnap quest there and getting some better leather armour. I solved the merchant's little quarrel to do with Thorinir, got "That you, Agamir?" stuck in my head for literally weeks. I'm not exaggerating, I don't know why that line sticks out so much in my head, and I had a hell of a time beating that guy in the crypt because he locks you inside. It turns out that having 100% weakness to magicka is a severe disadvantage. Who knew? And I hadn't been levelling my endurance just yet, so I had a whopping 49 total health and 30 total endurance. The enchantment on his sword Debaser drains endurance by 10 points, or 20 for me, leaving me with 10 total endurance, which basically insta-killed me because the damage of the hit would lower my health too. Rad. That ordeal over, I made great friends with Jensine at her good-as-new merchandise shop, got enough gold for the waterfront property and some storage, dumped my inventory and headed on the Black Road to Coral. Huge vibes, by the way, getting to explore a couple of Imperial forts, which I'm now rating quite highly on replay, up there with Ayleid ruins now. I won't go into detail about all the places that I've been, but I've made it a point to explore a ton of map markers near the major cities and along the roads that I visited while travelling. It's been a blast. I joined the Mages Guild in Coral, decided not to bother with the Fighters Guild, did all the starting intrigue around the city, like solving the missing painting quest for the Countess, and I tried to get Finger of the Mountain, but was insta-killed any time that I tried. I later found out how much damage it was doing back to me when I came back with 100% shock resist and was gifted with a spell that does 140 shock damage, so double that thanks to my birth sign for a big ouchie. I found a few really cool caves, like Black Rock Caverns, hosting a pretty special secret area, scrounged up a set of chainmail armour that slowly progressed to Mithril as I levelled up, and it defended the Odil farm from a horde of goblins using my new druid-themed spells like Barkskin and Word of Healing. Lots of fun. I also did the Hack Dirt quest for probably the first time ever. Highly recommend that one, by the way. I found it pretty creepy overall, with the deep ones and their weird animalistic cult grunting in the darkness. I found a cult member that told me the best time to explore their caves, followed his advice, and managed to avoid getting into combat with any of the surface dwellers. They were all mean as heck to me anyway when I spoke to them earlier, so sod those guys. I also checked out Battlehorn Castle and found its secret room, lich and revived a minion along with it. Love that unmarked quest kind of stuff in this game, but I didn't stick around. After heading back to the city and dismantling a vampire's attempted murder cover-up, doing a few more arena fights and heading towards Skingrad, by this point I'd found a decent groove and a bunch of interesting places. My goal was to try and find all the alien statues for Umbacano's gold, but I was getting highly sidetracked. I was, admittedly, by this point getting a bit bored of caves by now, and I can see where all the complaints about them come from. I don't think I've ever spent this much time actually clearing them out in all playthroughs, but yeah, they are quite samey. The road to Skingrad and out west had a few unique modded locations to find. Some of them were kind of creepy, honestly, a strange statue with a tree for a head that I was convinced was going to spawn a bunch of enemies around me, a haunted bridge, a giant oak with some Daedric text under its leaves, a statue of a giant face of a lady embedded in another giant tree, lots of foresty themes around here, which was great for my druid I guess, but all really weird stuff for me. Genuinely made me feel uneasy in these locations, but top-notch atmosphere though. I went through Skingrad and really enjoyed being in such a tight, dense-feeling town with its thin streets and buildings looming overhead, slightly built outwards over the walkways. There's not a lot of quests to start here, but I dealt with Glathair's dangerous conspiracy quest and helped Urthor out of his zombie cave for the Mages Guild. I paid a visit to all things alchemical and sidestepped the owner's eclectic tastes, and then couldn't find a time the shop was open again for like 2 in-game weeks. By this point though I already had a set of expert alchemy equipment, which was proving its worth, but I was slightly regretting taking alchemy as a major skill. Don't get me wrong, I love alchemy in Oblivion, and all the Elder Scrolls games actually. It's always been a fun system to play around with to make gold and to figure out cool potion combinations. But having it also level me up made me want to sort of avoid spamming it this time, which is a bit of a shame. By this point, my character was about level 20 or just over, so it's perhaps not that big of a deal at this point, but I still haven't really got stuck into it either. I've also got Cobble installed, which adds so many ingredients to the game that it's genuinely overwhelming to try and figure out what's worth trying to collect and experiment with. I do love a good detect life potion though, letting me see whole dungeons as I explore them. As of writing this video, I've explored everything west of Skingrad to Kvatch, and I'm on the way to visit Anvil. Actually, I might be further than that, I can't remember. I really need some Fortify skill spells to spellcraft with, and I'm hoping that the Restoration Focus Guild will have some, or that Dunbarrow Cove will instead. We'll see about that. I've also detoured to get Saviour's Hide, thinking that the fashion will be pretty cool for my druid, but sadly it's disappointing because it doesn't really fit most light armor greaves all that well. So the next goals for me are to create a whole load of thematic D&D druid spells like Shillelagh, Conjure Flaming Scimitar, Call Lightning, Animal and Elemental Conjures, Poison Spells, Elemental Effects and all sorts of things like that. My current takes on some of these are working quite nicely. Conjure Shortsword plus Fire Weapon is neat for pretending it's a Flame Scimitar, handy for Undead or Will-O-Wisps, which still scare me by the way. Poison Spray is a cone of poison that also applies weakness. Thorn Whip is a damage health effect and added burden effect, which, thanks to the Avlata Magica mod, gives it a stagger chance, which kinda feels like the movement component of the cantrip in D&D. I plan for Druidcraft to give me an alchemy buff, so I'm more likely to harvest plants effectively. My Moonbeam spell does damage over time and applies a light spell to the enemy, which is fun to see follow enemies around. I have a Midas Entangle spell, which spawns plants and stops enemies in their tracks, but I might make a custom one that drains speed by a lot. I kinda love this one right now though. My Thunderwave spell is a little bit odd. I wanted it to push enemies away, and so far I have a Demoralize effect on it to kind of simulate that, but it instead makes enemies put their weapons away and shout in fear, so it's not really working how I intended it. I would actually really like some ideas on that front. I'm thinking of damaging fatigue to maybe try and do a knockdown perhaps, but I'm not sure yet. And I've got tons of other ideas, like Cone of Cold adding Burden to freeze people solid, which is another Avlata Magica special effect. Sleet Storm being a huge AoE silence to disrupt concentration like it does in D&D. Confusion being a rally and a frenzy effect to force enemies to fight each other confidently. And my favourite, Heat Metal, being a disintegrate weapon or armour, undecided on that one, plus fire damage and an expose effect to simulate the disadvantage it gives to enemies. I could go on and list all my ideas to do with D&D spell adaptation. So far they've been working really well, but I'll just leave it there. My druid is currently level 27 and thriving. I've barely explored much of the main map, barely done any main quests, and I cannot wait to see the Shivering Isles, which is my main goal eventually. I don't even have a set of Elven armour yet, which I'm also really looking forward to finding, let alone glass and amber armour from the Isles. it's been an absolute blast to re-explore Oblivion, and I also can't wait for Sky Oblivion later too. Yet another reason to replay all this cool stuff yet again. Anyway, thanks for listening to me ramble on. I've had to cut myself quite short here because I really could just rattle off all the places that I've been playing through, but I reckon that that's just about enough for now. Cheers for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.